Before time had names, before kingdoms rose and fell, before the echoes of history were written in stone, there were stories. Stories of faith, stories of power, stories that shaped the world, where the lessons of the past meet the present, and where the greatest stories ever told are revealed in a way you've never heard before. Heroes and villains, betrayal and redemption, destiny and divine purpose. Every story unfolds step by step, bringing history to life before your very eyes.
Once upon a time, in a grand land called Persia, there lived a beautiful young woman named Esther. She was a Jewish girl who had been raised by her wise and loving cousin, Mordecai. After the tragic death of her parents, Susa, the capital city of Persia, was a bustling metropolis filled with vibrant markets, opulent palaces, and the hum of everyday life. The air was fragrant with spices and melodies of the marketplace, but beneath it lay an undercurrent of fear for those like Esther and Mordecai, who belonged to a people often marginalized and persecuted. Mordecai, her guardian, was a devoted man of faith who shared with Esther the rich traditions and teachings of their people. He taught her the importance of God in their lives, resilience in the face of adversity, and loyalty to one's heritage. As Esther grew, she embodied these lessons. Her beauty was not only in her looks but also in her kind heart and quick wit. In those days, King Xerxes ruled Persia with great power and authority. His kingdom was vast, stretching far beyond the horizon, and he was known for his magnificent feasts and lavish displays. However, his quick temper was notorious, and many were fearful of his unpredictable nature. After a grand banquet where Queen Vashti defied him by refusing to display her beauty to his guests, King Xerxes fell into a rage, declaring she would no longer be queen. This decree sent shockwaves through the court, and left the throne open for a new queen. To find this new queen, the king commanded that all the young women from across the empire be gathered in the royal palace. News traveled quickly through the kingdom. Young women were to be taken to the palace for selection. For Esther, who had lived a life of modesty and restraint, this was both an opportunity and a source of great anxiety. With a heart full of both excitement and dread, she was thrust into the palace's glamorous yet perilous environment. Esther 2:8. So when the king's order and his edict were proclaimed, and when many young women were gathered at the citadel in Susa, into the custody of Haggai, Esther was taken to the king's palace. As Esther settled into her new role as a candidate for queen, she found herself in a world filled with luxurious silks, rich foods, and the company of other beautiful women. Yet, the palace walls were heavy with secrets, and beneath their gilded surface, Esther felt the weight of her hidden identity. Mordecai had urged her to keep her Jewish heritage concealed, knowing the dangers that such knowledge could bring. The isolation pressed down on her like a heavy cloak, yet she found solace in the stories of her ancestors. Their trials and triumphs echoed in her mind. Among those in the palace was Haggai, the king's eunuch in charge of the harem, who quickly noticed Esther's charm and diligence. He treated her with kindness and ensured she received special care. Under his guidance, Esther underwent extensive preparations to meet the king, receiving beauty treatments and instruction on how to present herself with grace. While other maidens were eager to be chosen, Esther's heart was filled with trepidation, knowing the weight of the crown she might wear. While all was seemingly tranquil in the palace, a sinister plot was unfolding in the shadows. A cruel and ambitious advisor named Haman had risen to power. His desire for control was insatiable, and he became known for his arrogance and malice. Haman's fury ignited one fateful day when he crossed paths with Mordecai, who refused to bow in reverence to him. This act of defiance enraged Haman, who sought not only revenge on Mordecai but also a way to eradicate all Jews from the empire. Esther 3:6. But he refused to lay hands on Mordecai alone, so they had made known to him the people of Mordecai. Therefore Haman sought to destroy all the Jews throughout the whole kingdom of Xerxes. When Mordecai learned of Haman's diabolical plan, he was filled with deep sorrow. He donned sackcloth and ashes, symbols of mourning and urgency. His heart ached not only for his fate but for the fate of Esther and their people. Outside the palace gates, Mordecai cried out in despair, calling upon God for mercy and guidance. As word of his distress reached Esther, she was alarmed and sent one of her servants to inquire about his condition. When Mordecai revealed the horrific truth of Haman's plot, a shiver of fear ran through Esther. She felt torn between her allegiance to her people and her position in the palace. The gravity of her cousin's words resonated within her. Surely, she had been placed in this moment for a purpose greater than herself. Esther 4:1. When Mordecai learned all that had been done, He tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes, and went out into the midst of the city. And he cried out with a loud and bitter cry. Mordecai sent a message to Esther, urging her to speak to the king on behalf of the Jews. He reminded her that, despite her royal status, she was not immune to danger. Esther 4:14, for if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place. But you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. Esther's heart raced as she felt the weight of Mordecai's words pressing upon her soul. Filled with fear yet also a sense of divine purpose, she resolved to act. She instructed Mordecai to gather all the Jews in Susa and to fast for 3 days. During that time, she too would fast, seeking God's guidance and strength for the dangerous road ahead. After 3 long days of prayer and fasting, Esther adorned herself in her royal robes, preparing to approach the king. Anxiety gripped her heart, and she paused for a moment to gather her thoughts and steady her breathing. With a fierce resolve, she approached the throne room, where the golden pillars shimmered, reflecting her fear and hope. King Xerxes, seated on his majestic throne, was surrounded by his advisors and guards. As deputies of an empire, they held immense power, but before the king's presence, all understood the frailty of human life. As Esther entered, time seemed to stand still. All eyes were on her, and she felt the weight of their gazes, some with curiosity, others with disdain. The moment stretched long, and a deep breath filled her lungs. The king looked up, surprise crossing his features, but then a smile warmed his face. Extending his golden scepter, he welcomed her to speak, granting her the favor she desperately needed. Esther 5:2, when the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court, she won favor in his sight. And the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. Gathering her courage, Esther invited King Xerxes and Haman to a banquet she had prepared. Both men, intrigued by her invitation, soon arrived at the beautifully arranged setting, where fragrant dishes and ornate decorations filled the table. The atmosphere was lush and inviting, and Esther tried to remain calm amidst the whirlpool of doubt in her heart. As they feasted, the king's curiosity deepened, and he inquired about her request. But Esther held back, choosing to invite them to yet another banquet the following evening. This strategic delay allowed her to gather her thoughts and prepare her heart for what was to come. Only she knew the depths of her fear and the stakes of this gamble. On the night of the second banquet, Esther's heart raced as she prepared to reveal her truth. Surrounded by the opulent decor and delightful food, she felt the world fade away. Here, at this moment of vulnerability, she gathered strength from within and again approached the king. Esther 7:3, then Queen Esther answered, "If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it pleases the king, let my life be granted me for my wish, and my people for my request." With tears brimming in her eyes, Esther revealed her Jewish identity to King Xerxes. She implored him to spare her life and that of her people, explaining Haman's treacherous plot against them. Each word she spoke was heavy with emotion, a voice calling for justice and mercy. The king's expression shifted from curiosity to outrage as he learned of Haman's wickedness. "Who would dare threaten my queen?" he bellowed, fury igniting within him. Esther pointed to Haman, exposing the man who had orchestrated the evil on innocent lives. The heat of the king's rage was palpable, echoing through the ornate chamber. Esther 7:10, so they hanged Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the wrath of the king abated. With Haman defeated, there remained a difficult task. The decree to destroy the Jews could not simply be revoked. However, the king trusted Esther and Mordecai's wisdom and granted them the authority to issue a new decree allowing the Jews to defend themselves against their enemies. Together, they meticulously crafted a message that resonated with hope, unity, and strength. Mordecai, working with Esther, sent out messengers throughout every corner of the kingdom, posting their new decree on every city wall. On the appointed day, an atmosphere of resilience enveloped the Jewish community, hearts beating in unison as they prepared to face their foes. Esther 8:16-17. The Jews had light and gladness and joy and honor, and in every province and in every city, wherever the king's command and his edict reached, there was gladness and joy among the Jews. As the day of defense arrived, the streets erupted with a mixture of anxiety and determination. Colorful banners flew high, and the sound of shuffling feet echoed as families gathered. United, the Jewish people stood together, bolstered by hope and faith. They remembered their ancestors, their resilience, their trials, and their connection to God. With courage ignited, they fought valiantly, standing strong against those who sought to harm them. The tide turned favorably as the Jews emerged victorious. dispelling the fear that had gripped their hearts for so long. Their bravery paid off, cultivating an atmosphere of joy and relief. In the aftermath of their triumph, the Jewish community was overwhelmed with gratitude. They celebrated the festival of Purim, a time of feasting, laughter, and remembrance of the miraculous events that had unfolded. The joy was palpable, filling the air with laughter and chatter as families embraced their loved ones.